So Wayne Greenway is the CEO and principal consultant of Career Aviators. Career Aviators is Canada's only career management firm that is a certified B Corporation. Career Aviators helps professionals, managers, and executives find positions in which they'll excel, value highly, and love to do. The profits from our work support programs to help vulnerable youth flourish in the face of highly stressful life situations. Wayne is a highly experienced workshop facilitator who specializes in experiential approaches to workshop delivery. So thanks so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. We're looking forward to your presentation. Are you having some problems with the screen share?
No, I think I've got it. Just hang on a second. It should show up right about now, I hope. Did it come through?
Yep, let's leave it up there now. There we go.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, and we'll be back towards the end to help you with any questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks so much,
okay, thanks for the introduction, Rachel, and we're going to get started. So, as Rachel mentioned, I'm Wayne Greenway with Career Aviators, and I put my contact information in the contact. You're welcome to, if you just go to the easiest way to get me, though, is probably go to my website, careeraviators.com. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see a contact form. And you'll also see a box there where you can request a free consultation. Happy to meet you and answer any of your questions that don't get answered here. Oh no, I've got a technical problem here. Hang on. It's not, okay, sorry about that. What we're going to do is to begin with, I feel that mindfulness is really important, and it's important in a job search. It's extremely important when you're doing interviews, but it's also important when you're preparing resumes. You've got to be focused and you've got to be present when you're doing that resume. And so, there's tons of free mindfulness courses. Pick a reputable business or reputable organization and take a course and do some mindfulness training every day. You should do 3 times a day. We're just going to do one for like 15 seconds. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and blow it out slowly through your mouth, and say the word calm when you finish blowing it out, just nice and slowly. And then I want you to look at this picture for just about 10 seconds. And during that 10 seconds, if other thoughts come into your mind, just notice them and let them go out of your mind, and then bring yourself back to this picture. Or if you don't like this picture, look out your window and look at something beautiful outside, or a flower, or whatever you want to look at for 15 seconds. So here we go. Let's just take a deep breath in. Calm. Now I want you to look at this slide and notice everything you can just for a few seconds. It's probably not 15 seconds, but we can get started. It'll give you the idea. So this whole presentation is about trying to make your resume tune-up easier. Not like the job this poor fellow is having in the picture here. He's having a rough time, but we want to make it easier. And so that's the purpose of this presentation. And so during the presentation, I would really like you to share information in the chat box, put whatever you want in the chat box. I'm not that rapid at answering questions and managing these online websites. I'm used to doing live presentations. So if I don't answer them during the question period, I will answer them right at the end. I should have a fair amount of time. And if I don't answer them, then please just write to me using my website, careeraviators.com, and the contact form, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to tell you some statistics. And what I'd like you to do when I finish telling you the statistics, I'm going to ask you to put in the chat box how knowing these statistics, you may have already known them before, but how knowing these statistics is going to is going to change either your job search or your resume preparation, your application preparation. So let's look at the first one. Now, these are American statistics. So I'm going to give you the non-scientific Wayne Greenway estimate of what I think it is in Canada, because I think it's pretty different. But these are important things to know. Resumes, what recruiters are look for in job seekers. Resumes tailored to open position. In Canada, I'd say it's 90%. You have to customize your resume. You will not get an interview if you do not customize every application you make to the specifics in the job description. Cover letters. Some people don't include cover letters. Crazy idea. Always put a cover letter in. And I'd say it's maybe that I would say here, probably 70% of employers expect to see a cover letter unless they tell you not to. Application addressed to the hiring manager. I think this is way higher in Canada. I think it's more like about 80% of hiring managers would expect that an application would be addressed to the hiring manager in name. And the thing is that there's a lot of hiring managers who think, well, if the person couldn't be bothered to find out who to address the letter to, then that's probably how they do their job. And so you don't want to take that risk. 75% of employers caught a lie on a resume. Well, a lie is a pretty strong word, but I see a lot of people when I first see them that stretch their accomplishments. You know, it's important to have accomplishments, but they need to be truthful. So my suggestion is when you revise your resume, send your bullets, write a letter, an email to your former employer, your boss, and say you're preparing a resume, and now resumes need to be very accomplishment oriented. And here's the bullets, and send the bullets that you're saying about your performance, and get the employer's feedback on it, your boss's feedback. And that way you'll feel assured that you're not over exaggerating. 80% of recruiters use LinkedIn. I'd say it's 99% of recruiters and HR people will check you out on LinkedIn. If they're interested in you, they're going to look you up and see what your LinkedIn profile is. So make sure that you have a good LinkedIn profile if you're going after any kind of professional job. Reviewers take an average of 6 seconds to 40 seconds to scan your resume. And you'll see why in the next slide. But this is very important. You have a maximum of 40 seconds to convince that person out of probably 250 people that you deserve an interview. So your resume, that's why it has to be highly customized. Okay, now this is why. Online job ads receive about 250 resumes on average. I'd agree with that's true in Canada too. Most employers, I live in Guelph, Ontario, and most employers here, medium-sized employers would probably get 250 resumes for the average job. So think about it. They're bringing 3 people in out of those 250 resumes for an interview. So your odds of getting an interview are not high. So don't feel overwhelmed if you don't get an interview. It could have maybe they didn't even see your resume. If you're a small HR department of a couple of people and you get 250 applications, there is probably no way that you're going to go through all those applications. You're probably going to take the first 50 or 60 and go through those. And if you can find 6 or 7 people out of the first 50 that are really great, then you're gonna do an initial interview with those people. Okay, so your odds of getting an interview are not high. In fact, if you haven't done networking, if you're not known to the company, you stand about an 8% chance of getting an interview. Like if you're just applying on Indeed with no networking to support you, your chances of getting an interview are you might as well enter a lottery. From 250 applications, you can see about 2% receive interviews. That's according to Workopolis. Okay, 98% of Fortune 5 companies, that's the big ones, use ATS, applicant tracking systems, and according to JobScan, and I would say that that's very true. And the ATS systems can weed out about 75% of the applications, but you'll see later in the presentation that it may be just the way the application is laid out. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, now I can see if I can figure out how to work the chat box. What I'd like you to do is to, maybe I have to stop sharing. Oh, I don't want to do that. One second. Oh, here we go. So if in the chat box, if you can put in what you've learned from this session, it would be great. You know, not from the session, but from these statistics. Okay, hang on. Okay, well, I don't see too much going on in the chat box, so I'm just going to continue to roll through the slides and hope this is all working and I'm coming through okay. So let's talk about the resume analyzer. The resume analyzer is a document that I have that I have clients, and really anybody who wants to use it can use it to analyze their resume to see how strong it is in general. That's for applying to a position. And so I'm going to take you through some of the points on the resume analyzer. It's done on a scoring system. So you score each criteria from 1 to 7. 1 is strongly disagree and 7 is strongly agree. And so you want to, when you finish customizing your resume and it's all ready to send in, you want them all these criteria rated as 6 and 7s out of 7. So first of all, it needs to be generally appealing. I mean, that's obvious. I don't need to talk much about that. No errors in grammar, punctuation, or spelling. Make sure that you, even if you are great at writing, make sure you get a friend who likes doing proofreading and loves finding little errors in resumes. I can't tell you, I've done about 5,000 interviews in my career, and nearly every panel interview I was involved with, there'd be somebody on there who loved doing that, and one of the people on the selection team, and if they had a paper copy of the resume of the applicant, while they were doing interview, they'd circle all the mistakes on it, and then after the person left, we might think this person's great, and then the person would hold up the resume and say, do we really want to hire somebody who sends in documents like this? So make sure it's right. Font style is easy to read. It needs to be 11-point font, and straight up and down sans serif font. Remember, the people you're writing to are older. You don't usually get senior positions, or you're not a hiring manager. You usually went right out of school. And so as the person gets older, their vision gets a little harder. You do not want to have the person, squint their eyes in order to be able to see what you've written. You want lots of white space, and you want 11-point font minimum. Chronological resume is really important. On the web, you'll see lots of confusing information. You'll see a lot of experts saying, functional resumes are good, especially if you've had a gap in your career. I strongly disagree with that. Most people, you don't want to try and hide a gap. What you want to do is you want to show them the gap and explain it. And if there's been some problem in that gap in your history, you want to show them how it's not a problem anymore in your letter. Or you can show them on the resume how it's not a problem. There's ways to do it. So it's important to chronological because people want to see the growth in your leadership skills and in your overall skills that are in the area they're looking for. Okay, so every bullet, not every bullet, but most of the bullets need to start with action verbs, such as successfully led, initiated, established, created, improved, transformed, streamlined, etc. So the bullets need to start with action words, and it's important that a lot of the bullets start with that, because when you're looking at it in 40 seconds, you see somebody who's successful when you see that. Okay, the format for each bullet doesn't have to be exactly this way, but I'll show you some examples in the next slide. But the format I like to use is AWH, action word. So just like the ones we said, streamlined, initiated, developed, what you achieved with a metric, if possible. Metrics are really important. And if you don't have metrics, then estimate the metric, scale it down a little bit, and use the word more than. And then also check with your boss, your former boss, and see if they agree with what you put. And then how. And so not all bullets have how in it, but sometimes the how is quite powerful, and you'll see that in the next slide. Okay. Action, what, how, AWH, remember that. Okay, so led the team through a complex product redesign, reduced production costs by $2.5 million from concept to execution, strengthening relationships with over 50 stakeholders. Okay, action word, led the team. Okay, what, through complex product redesign, metric, reduced production cost by 2.5 million, and then how would be sort of from concept to execution. And there's another achievement, really. They've got a double achievement in this bullet, makes it really strong. Strengthening relationship, and another metric with over 50 stakeholders. That's a very strong bullet. Researched and developed, action word, what, a new interactive change management training course. Is the what, and there's not really a how, but it's sort of a result. And receive positive feedback from over 500 employee participants throughout the company. So it's kind of a how, because obviously they took this change management system throughout the company. Saved over $100,000. That's the action word is saved. What is a metric itself, $100,000 in reduced pricing. How? By renegotiating contracts with our suppliers. Okay, last bullet. Increased productivity. Increased is your action word. What? Productivity and effectiveness. Metric of 12 new employees. How? By thoroughly training them on how to use equipment and proprietary software. I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay, under each bullet, at least 70% of the bullets need to be accomplishment oriented. So I'd say it's closer to 80%, but 60 or 70% will do if you have to. Under each job, the bullets are concise and compelling. So if you want a little trick you can teach yourself, you can use for yourself, it makes it a little bit fun. Pretend that you have to pay your partner or your spouse or a friend $5 a word for every word in your resume. And then think, and then see how much the resume is costing you, and see if you really want to pay that much. And so your job is to pay as little as possible and get that resume as strong as possible. It just makes it a little bit fun. Okay, 11, the reviewer could easily see how now this is critically important, easily see how the pattern of my accomplishments across my career match with the qualifications. And then this is really important, in the language of the job description and in less than 30 seconds. So, what you want is when a person is selecting somebody, they're looking for people who have repeated success in the qualifications that they've listed in the job description. So basically, when you're customizing, you want to take that list of qualifications, you want to take them one at a time, go to each job, and see if you can create a success bullet, a truthful success bullet to speak to that qualification. Then go to the second qualification. And you take all the qualifications, or the most important ones, for each of your jobs on your resume. And you want to show repeated success, and that in the language of the job description is critically important, because the person in 40 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever, the person doesn't have the time to think, well, because the person did this, they probably fit my qualification. There's no time for that. So you want to use their words from the job description, so there's no thinking involved. They see very clearly exactly how you have a success in that job for that qualification in the job description. Okay. There are almost no statements on the resume that anyone else applying to the job could say. This is another really crucial one, including the summary statement at the top of the resume. Now, I go back and forth on summary statements. To be honest, the summary statements that I see come into me are horrible. You know, the summary statement, if I look at the summary statement, I could take that summary statement and put it on the top of most of the people who are applying to the job. That most of the time they don't tell me anything that's unique about the person who's applying. So if you're going to have a summary statement, it needs to be customized to the specific qualifications of that job if you really want to get an interview. Because the most valuable part of the space on the resume is the top. So if you're not willing to do that work of customizing that profile bullet, and I know it's a lot of work, then I would say leave it out. You know, if you're really short of time, leave it out and just start with relevant experience and make sure that every bullet is customized for the job. Okay, applicant screening requirements. This is the ATS system, maybe what you've been waiting to hear. So it's not that complicated. Basically, you don't want any tables or text boxes or columns or logos or any kind of graphics. You basically want straight text like this stuff is. You don't want anything fancy because it throws the I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it throws how it reads your resume out. So you want it just text, straight up and down text. You don't want unusual headings. Some people want to put creative headings for, you know, for work experience or relevant experience. You can use words like relevant experience, work experience, education, technical skills, but don't get fancy because it won't understand what you're talking about. And you can use, the things you can use are italics, underline, circle bullets, and then any of the fonts that we've talked about. And I get the fonts all mixed up, but you basically want a straight up and down font. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation, and I'm going to try and go back to the screen and see if there's any questions. Now let's see if I can find the questions. Okay, I'm going to start at the bottom here. I learned that applying without networking within a specific company leaves a slim, yes. You need to, whether it's within a company or externally, you need to do networking. And it's really critically important that you target your search. You pick up a role that you want to do, and you need to talk to 15 to 40 people who are doing that role in the geographic area where you're working. And you need to develop a friendship with those people so that they can tell you about a job before it's posted, so that allows you to talk to the hiring manager, so that then you can tell the hiring manager before it's posted. They'll usually talk to you, and you can find out what they're looking for. You can find out what kind of person they want in the position. You can find out a lot of stuff, and you can customize your application to that. And also the hiring manager can ask the HR department to include your resume if they've been impressed with your conversation. Isn't a functional resume valid when you are changing careers? I really don't think functional resumes have much use at all, to say the truth, even if you're changing careers. I think it's really important that you look at the successes you've had and how they tie into the role that you're going after. And then what you do a chronological resume, because you've only got 40 seconds. And if it's a functional resume, it's very confusing to read because you see the skills section up at the top, and then you're trying to figure, well, when did that person do those things? And what order did they do them in? It's very hard to understand. And also, the first thing that an HR person does is look for gaps in your resume, because that's a yellow flag if they're not explained. So very important. Oh, thanks, you got it. Is there any other questions? Be precise. Oh, okay, that was comments. Okay. I guess there's not too many people on this. Anyways, is there any other questions?
Wayne, can you hear me okay? Hello?
Hello.
Hi,
is that Alex?
Yeah, how you doing?
Huh, good.
Yeah, I just wanted to... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I just wanted to jump on quickly just to help with any other questions that come in. So yeah, if anyone has any extra questions for Wayne, feel free to put them in chat here. But while we wait, Wayne, I just wanted to follow up on something Rachel mentioned earlier. So is the best way to contact you through your email or LinkedIn or website or?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. The easiest
Yeah.
way, I guess, is just to go to careeraviators.com and then scroll down to the bottom of the page. There's a contact form there, and just fill that out.
Yeah.
And also there's a box for a free consultation. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Oh, there is another question here. So from Pratima, and sorry if I pronounced that wrong. How do I talk about a gap when I have done additional education in that gap time?
Okay, so don't worry about gaps as long as your education is clear in the education section. Don't worry about gaps that were for educational purposes. If you're doing a chronological resume, it won't matter. That was an easy one.
Great, perfect. Yeah, so if anyone has any other questions, we can just go, I guess, until 3, and then if there's no other questions, we can hop off. But while we wait, I did have another follow-up question. What's a key takeaway that you want someone to get from your presentation today? Oh,
actually, it was in the very first slide that somehow I didn't know how to go back to it, and I skipped it in the beginning. The most important takeaway from this session is write your resume to get the interview and not the job. It's really important because if you write the resume to get the job, you're going to be talking about all your awesome successes, you know, all the wonderful things you've done. And if you're a reviewer screening resumes, you don't really care about your other successes. You just care about who fits the criteria in the qualifications that you're looking for. And so write the resume to get the interview, and then in the interview, we'll tell them all about the awesome successes in other aspects of your career.
Awesome, thanks. And there is another question here from Amanda. So she asks, how do you talk about a gap if you've been unemployed or are on unemployment?
Well, there's a few different ways to do it. One of the things that you can do, if it's during COVID, you don't really have to say anything. But what I would do is I would try to, if you've done any courses over COVID or while you've been unemployed, I would have a professional development section in your resume and make sure that you show the dates of when you've done those courses, and that it shows up in there. The other thing that you can do is if you've done some volunteer work, what I do is I combine if you do professional kind of volunteer work, I combine that with paid work. And I don't have clients define whether it's paid or unpaid if they have successes underneath each. They have to say in an interview, but it's all I call it relevant experience rather than work experience. And so if you've done some volunteer work, you can put that in. Sometimes people set up their own business and start working on creating, doing the business plan and all that kind of thing. And that's another way to fill that space, because you can say, well, I'm setting up my business and I've done the business plan and I'm working on the marketing. And so it gives you something to talk about.
Oh, sorry, it looks like I was muted there. I was about to say, I don't see any other questions in chat, unfortunately. But I just want to say thanks again, Wayne, for speaking. It's always great to have you at our events.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. I hope people got something out of it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.